we're continuing now. V'adamina ba'alma. That's the Haman base, page 10. V'adamina ba'alma. We now clearly have risen from the Gemara to what we're calling that I am Mehemna. And as I've told you already yesterday, that I am Mehemna is corroborated. That means it's supported by the Gemara in Berachos and the Gemara in Bava Basra Perek Aleph. The Nigla definitions of Tzaddik Beinani Rasha means Tzaddik means more than 50% good, Rasha means more than 50% evil, and Beinani means approximately 50-50. The Zray Mehemna's definition is Tzaddik means he has no Yetzer Hara ki hargi b'tainis, Rasha means even one Aveda, and Beinani means he has an Aveda. He has a Yetzer Hara, but he has no Avedis, afilu of and bittul teira, the Aveda bittul teira, nor any sur meira, not even the Rabban. Shara Shabei Kafotev, he has a Yetzer Hara. But Yetzer Hara is bent. Bent means say it's not manifesting. Tzaddik v'teilu doesn't have Yetzer Hara b'chlal. Tzaddik v'rali has a Yetzer Hara, but it's kafuf l'teiv, kafuf l'bot l'teiv. In other words, it doesn't have any opportunity to come out. The teiv has washed it away, practically speaking.
Can it come back?
Right, sorry? That's a Bazunda Kasha, and the answer right now is I don't know. It's a good Kasha, it's a clear. This is what it says Ba'alma the Veldzok. In other words, the Gemara and the Rambam says the mechza mikra beina, that half and half is a beina. The Rav Zochi is mikra tzaddik, and the majority of mitzvahs is called a tzaddik. And of course, the majority of the opposite mitzvahs is the opposite of tzaddik. In other words, now that we went on to the Raya Mehemna's definition, what are we going to do with the Gemara? The Gemara did give a different set of definition, and the answer is Hushay Mamoshel. It's also a correct use of the word tzaddik beinani rasha, but they're borrowed uses of the words, because over there it's inyan schar ve'enish. It's only about reward and punishment. Tzaddik means righteous in schar ve'enish. Rasha means rasha in schar ve'enish, and beinani means teila in schar ve'enish. That lafish and nida nacharubit. Since people are judged practically whether they go to Gan Eden or to Gehenna based on even the majority. Therefore, there's a concept of tzaddik beinani rasha which the Gemara uses, and the Rambam paskins like this definition. That omikra tzaddik b'dini, one is called righteous in judgment, because he wins his judgment, and he's called a beinani if his din is tailor. And this is the Gemara's definition, and this is the Rambam's definition. It's called Shema Moshe. We borrow the words tzaddik beinani rasha in as much as judgment is concerned. But however, in Yamitis, the truth of Shem HaTeira, a name that describes what the word tzaddik means, and what the word beinani means, what the word rasha means, the Raya Mehemna is correct. And the Raya Mehemna is supported by this Gemara in Brachas that we mentioned, and also the Gemara in Bava Basra. Because for Hamayla, the true level, Shemayla, Omadregis, the level and step of Chalukis, of what separates Tzaddikim Ubeinim, Tzaddik and Ubeini. Amar Azal, the Gemara says this is the same Gemara in Brachas that we had on the previous Amud. Tzaddikim Eitzatev Sheiftan, Shnebe V'libi Chalul Bekirbi. Rishoy Mitzvah Sheiftan, Beinim Zevazeh Sheiftan, Tzaddikim Eitzatev Sheiftan. Tzaddikim were judged only by the Eitzatev. Shenem, as the pasuk says, David HaMelech V'libi Chalul Bekirbi, my heart is hollow within me. She'ein li Yetzer Hara. David HaMelech no longer had a Yetzer Hara. Ki hargei b'tainis, he murdered it through fast. Aval, however, kol mi shelehi gila madrega zu. Any person who has not reached this madrega of killing his Yetzer Hara, not having it anymore, or in the lashon of Raya Mehemna, at least sharash beikaf of l'teva, the evil is so bent to the good that never manifests. So afshezach esav merubam elav esav. Even a person has more mitzvahs than avedis, ain't even milas umadregas tzaddik. He's not on the level and step of tzaddik whatsoever. You can borrow the word tzaddik legabe judgment, but if you want to know the true definition, the meaning, the taich of the word tzaddik, a tzaddik doesn't have a majority of good, a tzaddik has no a majority of good, a tzaddik has zero avedis. In fact, he has no inclination for avedis. And this explains another medrash. Hashem HaKadosh Baruch Hu sees the tzaddikim are very, very few. And I think this is also a Gemara. Hashem plants them in every generation. As the pasuk says, tzaddik is the foundation of the world. Now, if tzaddik means more than 50% good, tzaddikim are mu'at. More than half the world is Rishoyim. Hard to believe. You have to assume that most people are tzaddikim. Legabi Shema Mushal. If tzaddik means a majority of good, most people are tzaddikim. So what does the Gemara say? There's so few of them, and Amad v'shos v'cholder v'deir, and the answer is because of here we mean the word tzaddik and the correct use of the word. And the correct use of the word tzaddik is a Shema Toyar. It describes a personality that Arasha beikafaf l'tev v'libi chol b'kirbe. He has no manifest Yetzer Hara whatsoever. Now I want you to know this. Bekitz and Imritz. There's a Lakuta Sichas Chelik Dalet. Pikiyavas Peirik Dalet. In the Peirik Dalet Pikiyavas, where the Rebbe explains a numerous madregas of tzaddik. There's a lot of there's tzaddik she'enei gomer, and then in tzaddik gomer, I think the Rebbe lists 5 madreges in Tzaddik Gomer. 5 madreges in Tzaddik Gomer. There's the 18,000 tzaddikim that are Kamei Kuchabrichu, and then there's the Lamed Vav tzaddikim, the Vav tzaddikim he brings, and then he brings what's called Bnei Aliyah. Bnei Aliyah is a very high madrege, but it's possible there should be more than one. And the highest madrege is V'tzadik Yisei Delam, could be only one in each generation. So the Rebbe enumerates that sikha. I don't have time to go into that. Different madreges in Tzaddik Gomer. The Gemara says one is Aili Babar, Aili Baleibar. The lower madrege can only go into the Eibishter with Rishus, and the higher madrege goes into the Eibishter Baleibar even without Rishus. Different madreges in Tzaddik Gomer. So even though Bekolos, we're speaking only about all tzaddikim, and we're saying what's a Taicha tzaddik, someone who's killed his Yetzer Hara, Shara Shabei Kafaf Latev, and the Alter Rebbe says it's rare. Tzaddikim are rare. But Bepratiyev, there's many madreges in tzaddikim. There's even many madreges in what we call Tzaddik Gomer. And the highest madrege is Tzaddik Yisei Delam, and there can only be one such tzaddik in each generation. Okay? So we've finished the introduction to the Tanya. And if I may say it in 10 words or less, the introduction to the Tanya says, we want to discuss Tzaddik Ben Yirashu. We start with the Gemara, we move on to the Raya Mehemna, and to the Gemara in Berachas and Baba Basra, which support the Zayar. And we explain, it's not a contradiction in Shas, it's Mara Marchada, Mara Marchada V'lei Pligi. It's two sets of definitions of Tzaddik Ben Yirasha, one of the Shem Mushal, the Shem Atir. The Tanya begins now. Now that we went on to the Hasidic definitions, to the Kabbalistic definitions of Tzaddik Ben Yirasha, we have to talk about a person. Before we can actually analyze Tzaddik Ben Yirasha, which will be Perek Yud is Tzaddik, Perek Yud Aleph is Rasha, Perek Yud Beis is Benyani, we have to have a 8 prakim plus introduction about what a person is. And basically a person is two nefashos. Now that we've established that there is a pnimius deketai to Tzaddik Ben Yirasha, it deserves our explanation. And it can be explained, as written in Reb Chaim Vital Sefer Shara Kedusha. I want you guys to know that something called Shmeina Prakim, Shmeina Sha'arim. The Arizal Sfarim were written over 4 or 5 drafts. We have what's called Eitz Chaim and Pri Eitz Chaim. The last draft of the Arizal's writings is called the Shmeina Sha'arim, written by Reb Chaim Vital. Shara Kedusha is not one of the Shmeina Sha'arim. It's a small little Musar Sefer. It's a Pikabola, but it's a Musar Sefer, which speaks about a lot of times Chassidus quotes the Shara Kedusha. It's not from the Shmeina Sha'arim. It's a Yeseides Dike Sefer of Avoida from Reb Chaim Vital. And it's also Beitz Chaim Shanun Perik Beis. It says the following: every single Jew, both righteous and evil. Yeshtei Neshamas has 2 souls. The Kislev, as the pasuk says in Neshames and Yasisi, I created souls plural. And the Gemara Chazal, the Tanya assumes that when it says I created souls plural, it means each individual has many souls. And the Alter Rebbe translates Shtei Nefashos. It's 2 life forces. Why does the Alter Rebbe translate Shtei Neshamas as Shtei Nefashos? It's the same difference. And the answer is because the neshama, word neshama, you know it's a godly neshama. So he says, even though the pasuk and the Rachav says 2 neshamas, I want you to know that doesn't mean 2 neshamas, 2 godly neshamas. It means 2 forces of life. So therefore he says nefashis, because a goyas has a nefesh, an animal also has a nefesh, a plant has a nefesh. So by rewriting, re-saying Shein Shtei Nefashos, the Alter Rebbe is explaining that not both of these souls are holy, but both of these souls give life. You understood? Nefesh Achas, the first of these souls, and of course as the Gemara says, it's brought to Chassidus, the Nefesh HaBahamis comes first. The Nefesh HaLekis doesn't begin to enter the person till his bris, doesn't completely enter the person till the bottom of the Bas Mitzvah, and the Gemara says, the Lashon Agdamei Ta'ani said, Nefesh HaBahamis, the Yetzer Hara comes first. So the Alter Rebbe explains it first. Nefesh Achas, the first soul, comes from the side of the shell, and comes from the other side. The word Sitra Achel we discussed in Tanya Perek Vav. Klipa, I suppose we could say, will be discussed in Tanya Perek Chav Beis. So we're leaving them alone. And Chav Dalet. This soul, which is the behemoth, which on the other side is in the blood of a person. Lahach is a guf to give life to the body. It's written in the pasuk, the soul of the flesh. Badam, he is in the blood. In the blood there's a soul which is from the other side. You'll see later that this soul is called a behemoth. Right? Nefesh HaBahamis. Are animals bad? Kosher animals bad? Kosher animals have 3 characteristics. Number 1, they're selfish. Number 2, they're short-sighted. They have no concept of beyond. They don't care. They just want to eat grass. And the 3rd characteristic doesn't exist in animals, but it exists in the human animal. Worry. We worry. We always, what's going to happen when we have nothing left to eat? Those are the 3. The behemoth is not bad. Selfish, short-sighted, and daige, worrying. Those are the characteristics of the animal. The animal doesn't have to be a killer to be an animal. The Vart is, Nefesh HaBahamis doesn't mean bad, he murders people. Nefesh Bahamis means bad. He's not bottled to Hashem. It's bottled to it. He wants what's good for it. He doesn't care about the ruchnius. Not the pshat, he doesn't like the Eibishter. The ruchnius is boring. If I can't eat it, it doesn't taste good. Why do I want it? And the third characteristic, which exists in the human behemoth, as opposed to the behemoth, is like the story goes, the Eibishter cursed the Nachash, it should eat earth. In fact, that's the greatest blessing give an animal. There's plenty of food around. No. The Eibishter curses the Nachash, it should eat earth, and the Nachash is walking around worried what happens if I eat up all the earth in the world. What? If I eat up all the earth, what am I going to eat? If I eat up all the sand, what's the This is a vort. The vort is Nefesh Bahamis worries. Worries unreasonably, but worries. So the Alter Rebbe, Mimena boys, and from this animal come Kol Amidas, all bad traits. And the bad traits have to do with the 4 elements. Everything is made up of 4 elements: fire, wind, water, and earth. And the different midas arois that a behemoth has. And remember, they don't have to be bad midas. They have to just be selfish midas. They have to just be not bottled Hashem midas. In the Hasidic world, if it ain't good, it's bad. If it's not bottled Hashem, it's behemoth. The bad midas means that the behemoth midas that a human being possesses come from the 4 elements. The Hainu, when he specifies, kas v'gaiva, anger and conceit, is from the element of fire. Why? Fire rises. Anger comes from a sense of being higher than other people. Gaiva for sure comes from a sense of being higher than people, comes from Eish. V'taiv is a tanugim, the desire for pleasures. Is me say the mayim comes from the element of water. Water sprouts forth all kinds of pleasures. Sometimes it's brought. Water has a tendency to dvekus. Water has what's called a adhesive quality, a glue, a sticking quality, and this is the meshicha, the draw of a person to taivus. Halelus means frivolousness. Velitzonis means cynicism, to laugh at everything. Ve'espidus and boastfulness. Udvarim betela means that to speak useless words. When we say the ruach comes from the element of wind, no explanation necessary. Ve'atzvus, we say the offer, laziness and depression come from the element of earth. Says Alter Rebbe v'gam. Moreover, midas tevis, there could be good traits that come from the animal soul, because the animal soul isn't bad. He's just an animal. In other words, it's not bad that he kills. He's bad that he's selfish. And sometimes you can be selfish and have rachmanis. And by a yid, it's true, because Shabbatava kol yisol b'tadaisim, and the nature of the yid from birth, in other words, the nature of the behemoth of a yid from birth, there is midas tevis. For example, rachmanis, compassion and general kindness. Boys, you may not come from it. Kibi Yisrael, because in a Yid, Nefesh Zu de Klipa, this spirit of Klipa, he me Klipas Negas, me Klipa called Noiga. The translation of the word Noiga means a Klipa that has a little bit of light. In other words, if you'll crack the shell of Klipas Nega, the light will come out. If you'll crack the shell of the other Klipas, what's going to come out? You'll find a second shell and a third shell and a fourth shell. Ad infinitum, you can't get to the light except through extreme avodas. Since a Yid's Behema comes to klipa called Naiga Shesh Bagam Kein Teva, has good in it, and the Alter Rebbe says, just to confuse you a little bit, I'll give you a mystical form. V'mi say Eitzadas Tevara comes from the element, the idea of the Eitzadas Tevara, which has also Teva as well. Now, boys, I want to say one akud. When the Alter Rebbe says that a Yid's Nefesh Bahamis has Midas Tevis, he doesn't only mean that it has Rachmanis and Chasedim. It has altruistic Midas Tevis. A Yid's Nefesh Bahamis can have Midas Tevis that are not reciprocal. He's not going to get anything back. He's not giving you tzedakah today, you give him tzedakah tomorrow. By a Yid, the behemoth, not only can have rachmanas and chasadim, he can have selfless. I'm going to get nothing for it. My teva is kitira adam b'kisisei. Someone is naked, you clothe him. Verstehst? A guy can also have rachmanas. A guy can also have chasadim. But by a guy, it's always legarmaya. They want something in return. By a yid, the behemoth of a yid can do certain things, mamish, just for the sake of it. But only certain things. Which ones? Rachmanas and chasadim. The Rebbe has a ha'ara where he says, l'cheire, Yidden have 3 tiviyim. What's the third one? By Shonis. How come the Alter Rebbe skips by Shonis? So the Rebbe says, B'teva of Nefesh HaBahamis, bashful, shameful. By a Yid, Nefesh HaBahamis is a chutzpah yigad. Yisrael Azan Shemus. We're very arrogant and very, 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 very bold. The by Shonis, says the Rebbe, comes from Nefesh HaLakis. Not from Nefesh HaBahamis. It's taka ufi shalom azu, it's a teva, but it's not from Nefesh HaBahamis. Nefesh HaBahamis, Rachmanis and Chasad. And you see this b'muchish taka. A Yid is a chutzpah yigad. By Shonas comes from Yiddishkeit. Rachman, look at Freie Yidden, and we're plenty frei. Rachmanos and Chasadim is a tevatak. By Shonas has to happen through Avodas Hashem. Mashenkin nefashas umeis ha'olam. That's what it should be, as opposed to the souls of goyim. Hey, Mishar Klippas Meis come from the other Klippas. She'ein behen teiv klal, that don't have any real good at all. The chiddush of the Alter Rebbe by a Yid is that he could do a midah altruistically. You have to understand, psychologists have been studying, is there such a thing as altruism? Doing something without expecting something back. If altruism exists, you have to accept that there's a soul. And biologists don't want to agree that there's a soul. So whenever they see Mesiras Nefesh, people dying for one another, or animals dying for one another, so they've created a concept called reciprocal altruism. I'm going to die today so that my offspring, someone will die for my offspring tomorrow. There's always a selfishness. The Alter Rebbe says by a Yid it could be selfless altruism. I don't want anything back. Goy can give tzedakah too. He can even give his life. But it's reciprocal. He wants something back. Why? Because a Mishar Klippas Meis, it comes from other Klippas. She'ein be'em teiv klal, that has no good. Mishkasa be'etz chaim sharim em tes pei, the Gimel is written in Kabbalah, and the Rebbe quotes, V'chaltivu the avdin ha'umis, the Evdigum take out. All the good that are done by the nations of the world, the Gamay avdin, they want something back for it. How terrible is it to want something back for your goodness? It's not so terrible, but the bottom line is it's reciprocal. The Gemara says that the kindness is the Gemara Masech the Kedushin, that the kindness of the nations is a sin. Anytime there is charity and kindness done by a goyim, it's to boast and so forth. Let me tell you what this Gemara is about. Nebuchadnezzar was a Rosh Merusha, a kill of a dog he's called. And the Navi came to him and said, you're going to suffer and you're going to be killed, you're going to be wiped out. And Daniel got on his hands and knees and says, what can I do to help myself? And Daniel did an Aveda, which he paid dearly. He gave a Eitz HaTeva to a Goy, to a Rosh. We're not allowed to do that. Daniel told him, redeem your sins with tzedakah. And then Nebuchadnezzar, the Rosh, the Kislev, started to do tzedakah be'efin hafla v'afela. And it prolonged his melucha for 2 more years. And Daniel was punished. You're not allowed to give an Eitz to a Rosh to help him do tshuva. So the Gemara says of it that he was giving tzedakah, and the ganze tzedakah was lagarmayu. It was all for himself. The difference between a Yid and a Goy is not that a Yid could do a good thing and a Goy cannot. A Yid can do a good thing from the behemoth, and it's altruistic. The selfish Yid can do something selfless. It's a chiddush nifla. When people complain, how can we put down Goyim? Every psychologist in the world agrees with this Tanya. But the psychologist is going to say the same about a Jew. In psychology today, in anthropology today, in social sciences today, what they call paleo, but the study of evolution, nobody wants to admit that there's even a possibility to do something without a return, which is what the Alter Rebbe says about a Goy. The chiddush of what he's saying about a Yid is that a Yid can do something without expecting a return.